Sir, I said step away from the counter. The words didn't come from fear. They came from a place of authority, cold, calculated, and well-rehearsed. Jason Carr, general manager of Riverside Heights Hotel in downtown Denver, stood tall behind the marble desk, arms crossed, eyes scanning the man in front of him like a threat. He wasn't whispering. He wasn't lowering his voice. He wanted every guest in the lobby to hear what he was about to say. That's enough. You're making the guests uncomfortable, he added, louder this time. The man he was speaking to, black, mid-40s, dressed in a worn grey hoodie over a faded button-up shirt and dusty khakis, didn't flinch. He had a weathered backpack over one shoulder and a pair of work boots that had clearly walked through more than just hotel carpets. He didn't look like someone checking into the penthouse suite, at least not to Jason. You don't have credentials, Jason continued. This is a private facility. If you're looking for day work, try around the back. Housekeeping checks in at the service entrance. His voice was sharp, deliberate, meant to cut deep. The lobby fell into a hush. Conversations halted. Even the sound of suitcase wheels dragging across the floor seemed to stop mid-roll. Lacey Cole, a travel blogger visiting with her sister, nudged her phone screen open. She had a bad habit of filming awkward moments. This one, she could feel it coming. Are you seeing this? She whispered, camera already rolling. Malcolm Rivers stood still, didn't explain, didn't argue, just looked at Jason Carr with an expression that had no need for words, calm, centered, like a man who had lived through this moment far too many times. Jason misread the silence. Security will escort you out if you don't move, he snapped. This is a 5-star property, not a bus stop. The man said nothing. Instead, he reached slowly into his pocket and pulled out a sleek black card, heavy, metal, clean. He placed it gently on the counter, along with a Colorado driver's license. The name on both, Malcolm J. Rivers. Jason didn't touch the card. He laughed. That's cute, he said, turning to the front desk agent. Rebecca, call security. We've got a situation. The camera in Lacey's hand trembled. She'd seen hotel staff be rude before, but this wasn't rudeness. This was dismissal. This was, you don't belong here. This was, you're invisible. This was, you are not the kind of black man we think deserves this view. What Jason Carr didn't know, what no one in that room knew, was that in exactly 12 minutes, the man standing in front of him would fire every last person behind that counter. Right there, in that same marble lobby, and the only thing more shocking than the firing was who Malcolm Rivers really was. If this moment just made you stop and stare like the guests around him did, don't scroll. Hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you never miss stories like this again. Now, let's rewind. Let's find out how this moment came to be. Jason didn't look at the ID, he just waved at someone behind the front desk. Rebecca, what's the room on this one? He asked with a smirk. Let me guess. Maintenance closet? The front desk agent, Rebecca Nguyen, mid-30s, crisp navy blazer, immaculate bun, clicked her keyboard with disinterest. Her eyes flicked to the screen, then to Malcolm. She frowned. It says... Jason cut her off. No, don't read it out loud. It's obviously a mistake, or a system glitch. Check again. Malcolm stayed silent. Lacey Cole's phone was still rolling. So was her sister Jordan's now. The two women whispered commentary under their breath, but the cameras didn't miss a single word. Name? Rebecca asked flatly. Malcolm Rivers, he replied, evenly. Rebecca's eyes darted back to the monitor. She blinked, double-checked, her lips parted slightly, confusion flickering across her face. It says he has the Skyview suite. Jason snorted. Right. Rebecca hesitated. It's the top-tier suite, reserved under corporate override. Jason leaned forward, his smile tightening. Override? There must be a mistake. That override access only comes from executive level. I know, Rebecca said softly. Jason's jaw flexed. He reached across the desk and snatched the black card Malcolm had placed earlier, holding it between two fingers like it might be contaminated. He flipped it once, twice. "Heavy," he muttered. "Looks expensive." He turned to Rebecca. "Run it." Rebecca hesitated. "Sir, protocol says we shouldn't—" "Run it." She took the card and slid it through the terminal. The screen blinked. Approved. Jason stared at it. Then, with deliberate precision, he reached under the desk and hit a small red button. A soft chime echoed from a hidden speaker. Behind them, a door near the back opened. A tall, broad-shouldered man in a grey uniform stepped into view. Tony Brooks, hotel security. Late 30s, former military, buzzcut, earpiece in. "Problem?" Tony asked. Jason didn't look away from Malcolm. "Possible fraud," he said. "Someone trying to game the system. Claims to have the top suite. We're verifying the card now. Might need to detain." Tony folded his arms, stepping closer. Malcolm still hadn't moved. He didn't raise his voice, didn't shift his weight, just stood still, watching it all unfold like a man reading a script he'd memorized long ago. "Sir," Tony said, "I'm going to need you to step to the side." Malcolm turned slightly, not toward Tony, not toward Jason, toward the camera still filming from Lacey's hands. He looked directly into it, and then he pulled out his phone. One tap, just one. A message was sent. "It's time." Jason didn't notice. He was too busy playing authority. "We've had scammers walk in off the street before," he said loudly, addressing the growing crowd. "Flash a black card, hope the staff doesn't check." "Not today," he turned to Tony. "Take the card. Secure it." Tony reached out. Malcolm didn't stop him. He let the card go. Tony opened a drawer behind the counter. Inside, a brushed steel hotel safe. Sleek, digital. He placed the card inside, shut the door, and turned the key. Click. "You'll get it back after verification," Jason said casually, pretending the act wasn't theft. "Assuming it checks out." Malcolm exhaled softly, a quiet sigh that somehow felt louder than Jason's smug tone. "You know," Jason added, "a man like you walks in here alone, no luggage, dressed like that. Forgive us for being cautious." The crowd shifted. A couple near the windows turned to watch. A hotel porter stopped halfway through a luggage delivery, eyes narrowing. Jordan whispered into her mic. "They took his card." "For real?" On camera, Lacey whispered, "He hasn't done a thing." "And they just locked it up?" Malcolm's phone buzzed once, a text on the screen. "Received, system live, on standby." He slid it back into his pocket. Jason leaned closer over the desk. "Listen, we've had a long week. A real guest will be here any minute. Don't make this harder than it has to be." "Is this your normal protocol?" Malcolm asked calmly. Jason froze for half a second, then smirked. "It's our judgment protocol. For situations that look suspicious?" "What about it looks suspicious?" Malcolm asked, voice still calm. Jason leaned back, gesturing vaguely. "You showed up in work boots. That backpack. You didn't arrive in a car service. You came in on foot." From the side entrance, Malcolm tilted his head. "That's it?" Jason chuckled. "Sir, we reserve the right to refuse service." "You know that, right?" Malcolm didn't respond. He turned to Rebecca. "What happens now?" Rebecca didn't answer. Her eyes were on the safe. She looked unsure. Malcolm's voice dropped half a tone. "Do you believe I don't belong here?" Rebecca didn't meet his eyes. "I follow manager instructions." He nodded once, and that was all. Tony crossed his arms again. "I'd suggest you wait in the side lounge while we contact the bank." This could take some time. Malcolm turned, but instead of stepping away, he looked around. More guests had stopped. 4, 5, now nearly a dozen. Some pretending to check their phones, others openly filming. Jason didn't seem to notice, or didn't care. "You're lucky we didn't call the police first," he said. "Impersonating a high-tier guest is a serious matter." Lacey's voice broke the silence. Wait. You said impersonating? He gave you I? D. Jordan added. You locked away his card and now you're accusing him? Jason turned toward them. Are you guests of this hotel? Nodded. Then stay in your lane, he snapped. Rebecca flinched at his tone. So did Tony. Malcolm didn't. He was still watching everything, every word, every reaction, every guest recording the moment. And then he did something Jason didn't expect. He smiled, a small, unshaken, knowing smile. Jason frowned. What's funny? Malcolm looked him in the eye. You'll find out. Malcolm didn't answer Jason's smirk with words. He didn't need to. The man had spent decades learning how to breathe through insults, how to outlast stares, how to survive being underestimated. He turned toward the center of the lobby and sat on a bench near the grand piano. Not hunched, not small. He sat upright, like he belonged there, because he did. And as he sat, silence wrapped around him. The hum of the hotel lobby continued, the soft bell of an elevator, the whir of a rolling cart, the background music playing something jazzy and forgettable. But Malcolm didn't hear any of it. In his mind, he was somewhere else entirely. 17 years earlier, a different lobby, a cheaper hotel. Same feeling. Malcolm stood, 26 years old, in a faded janitor's uniform, dark green coveralls, Riverside property patch sewn crooked on the chest. He'd finished a 10-hour shift, mopped the basement corridors until his fingers ached. He wasn't even trying to check in. He was just waiting. His cousin was staying at the hotel and promised him a ride home after her conference. She was late. Malcolm stood near the coffee station, out of the way. He smelled of bleach and floor wax. His boots were damp. His back ached. But he stood, quietly, patiently, until the manager spotted him. Jason Carr, 10 years younger then. Same voice, same smirk, same superiority complex. Excuse me, Jason had said sharply. You can't stand there. Malcolm turned. I'm just waiting. Families checking out. Jason didn't blink. If you're off shift, use the staff entrance. You know the rules. I'm not loitering. You're not dressed to stand in this lobby. Please step outside. Malcolm remembered the cold snap that hit Denver that week. It was snowing sideways that night. He didn't even have a coat, just the coveralls and the sweat underneath. I'll wait outside, Malcolm had said. He did, for 42 minutes. Now, in the present, Malcolm sat still in a much fancier lobby, across from the same man, Jason Carr, who still didn't recognize him. Because men like Jason never look at janitors long enough to remember their faces. At the concierge desk, Daniela Morales watched everything. 23. Just started last week. Still training. She wasn't supposed to intervene. She wasn't even supposed to speak unless spoken to. But something about the man sitting by the piano made her chest tighten. She had seen him earlier that morning. Very early, before her shift technically began. She'd arrived early to impress her supervisor. As she entered the building, she passed the staff elevators and caught a glimpse of someone in a dark hoodie reviewing something on a tablet, standing near the executive access door. She remembered thinking, he doesn't move like a contractor. He moved like someone inspecting, not fixing. Quiet authority. And now that same man was being accused of fraud? Daniela looked toward Rebecca. The front desk agent wasn't typing anymore. She was just waiting, looking nervous. Jason was pacing slightly, checking his phone like he expected backup. Tony was watching Malcolm but didn't seem sure what to do next. Daniela leaned closer to the terminal at her station and keyed in the internal directory. Skyview Suite. Reserved MJ Rivers. Status confirmed. Tag Executive Override. Her heart skipped. She opened the internal guest notes. CEO flag. Riverside Core Executive Tier. Handle with full discretion. Do not announce externally. Daniela gasped. Quietly. She looked up. Across the lobby, Malcolm was already looking at her. Their eyes met. It was brief, but she knew he saw her read it. And then, without saying a word, Malcolm gave her the slightest nod. Recognition? Permission? Or maybe warning? Daniela froze. Her training said, defer to your manager. But her instincts screamed, something's wrong. Across the room, Jason's phone buzzed, a message from Tony's supervisor. CEO coming in today. Be on alert for unannounced visit. Jason frowned. What the hell? No one told him anything. He scrolled again. There it was. Potential anonymous site audit. Orders from corporate. No ID announcement. Check override guests. He paled. Slowly, he turned toward the front desk terminal. Rebecca, he said, voice lower. Pull up the override list. She hesitated, then clicked. 4 names. One caught his eye immediately. Malcolm J. Rivers. Jason's mouth opened, closed. He turned, slowly, toward the man sitting near the piano. The same man he had just humiliated. The same man he once threw out into a snowstorm. It hit him all at once, but before he could say anything, Malcolm stood up, calm, smooth. He pulled out his phone again, typed a short message. To Kendra Holt, Executive Assistant message. Begin emergency protocol. Full lock. Then he put the phone away and looked around. Jason took a step forward. Sir? Malcolm cut him off without a word, just a glance. Controlled, deadly quiet. Jason froze mid-step. Tony saw it too. He stepped back instinctively. Malcolm walked toward the front desk. All eyes were on him. Rebecca looked like she wanted to sink into the floor. Daniela stepped around her station, trembling. Sir, she said gently, voice barely audible. I saw the flag. He gave her a small smile. Thank you. Jason swallowed hard. I didn't know. Malcolm raised a hand, not to silence, but to command space. The room obeyed. The phones filming him didn't lower. The guests didn't speak. Even the jazz music felt quieter. And then the lobby screen flickered. Behind the desk, the main monitor blinked black. Then a logo appeared. Riverside Core, Executive Intervention Protocol, Live Feed, initiated. Jason stared, stunned. So did Tony. Carla Bennett's voice came through the speaker next to the terminal. Protocol active. Recording initiated. Local staff credentials frozen pending review. Rebecca gasped as her terminal logged her out. Tony's earpiece buzzed static. Daniela whispered, They're locking us down. Jason turned to Malcolm, desperate. You didn't have to do this like this. Malcolm looked at him. I didn't, he said, simply. But you did. Jason tried to recover. If I had known, you knew enough, Malcolm said. Then he turned to Daniela again. Get me the guest log from this morning. Everything under override tier. Yes, sir. Call Kendra. Put her on speaker. Yes, sir. Daniela moved fast, finally free to act. Malcolm turned back to Jason. You remember 17 years ago? He asked, calmly. Jason blinked. You made me stand outside. In the snow. Because I didn't look right for your lobby. Jason's mouth worked, but no sound came out. You still don't look, Malcolm continued. You judge. You decide. You gatekeep. Then, now watch what happens when the door swings the other way. Jason snapped. Turn that screen off. Now his voice cracked louder than he meant it to. The Riverside Core protocol screen still hovered behind the desk, a quiet declaration that the power in the room had shifted, and not in his favor. Rebecca's fingers hovered uselessly above the keyboard. It won't let me log back in. Jason clenched his jaw, then turned sharply toward Malcolm. You've made your point, all right? You got your little show. Now stop interfering with hotel operations, and let us resolve this through proper channels. Malcolm didn't move. He didn't need to. Because Lacey's phone was still filming, so was Jordan's, and now 2 more guests had phones up. A middle-aged couple, a younger man with a laptop bag slung over his shoulder, silent spectators no more. You stole his card, Lacey said to no one in particular. You locked it in a safe. That's theft, Jordan's voice joined hers. And now you're scrambling because it turns out you picked the wrong guy. Jason's face flushed. There are procedures, he barked. We don't hand out premium suites to people who show up looking like… He caught himself, but it was too late. Malcolm raised an eyebrow. Like what? Jason turned toward Rebecca. Did the bank even verify that card? Rebecca, flustered, shook her head. The transaction approved. Yeah? Jason scoffed. Well, approvals can be faked. Anyone with a burner phone and a square reader can spoof a response code. Daniela, still, standing to the side, finally stepped forward. He's not faking anything, she said, her voice quiet but firm. Jason whirled. Excuse me? Daniela held her ground. I saw his name this morning. In the override tier, Malcolm J. Rivers. He was flagged for executive clearance. The room seemed to freeze again. Jason blinked. I don't recall asking you to speak, he snapped. I wasn't speaking for permission, Daniela replied. I was speaking because you're wrong. Rebecca stepped slightly away from the desk, unsure who to follow. Jason's voice dropped into a dangerous growl. You're in training. You've been here a week. You don't get to question protocol. Daniela didn't flinch. I'm not questioning protocol, she said. I'm questioning why protocol is being ignored. The guests around them shifted. One woman in a designer coat murmured to her husband, This is going to blow up. Jason leaned closer to Daniela. I swear to God, if you don't walk back what you just said, your probationary period ends now. A quiet gasp from Rebecca. Daniela's hands trembled slightly, but her voice held. You're threatening to fire me for telling the truth? No, Jason hissed. I'm firing you for insubordination and undermining guest security. You're done here. Malcolm stepped forward. One question, he said, evenly. Jason turned. What? Was that also part of your training? Threatening young staff into silence? Jason opened his mouth, but Malcolm cut him off again. I'm curious how many times you've used that tone before. How many new hires you've shoved into obedience just because they saw something you didn't want seen. Jason laughed, nervous, sharp. You know, for someone who walked in off the street pretending to be a VIP, you sure like giving lectures. Daniela whispered to Malcolm, Should I call security? He smiled. Not yet. Jason scoffed. Call security? For what? He's trespassing. Lacey's voice cut in. He booked a suite, Jordan added. You locked his card. Jason's voice cracked. This isn't your business. It is now, Lacey said. You made it public the second you raised your voice. Jason looked around and finally saw what he hadn't been willing to acknowledge before. Phones, cameras, eyewitnesses. This wasn't a private humiliation anymore. This was public record. He turned to Tony, the security guard who had been standing awkwardly silent. Escort him out, Jason ordered. Tony blinked. On what grounds? Jason barked. Unauthorized guest, resisting staff instruction, filming without consent. I'm not filming, Malcolm said. Jason paused. Malcolm gestured calmly to the growing group of guests surrounding them. They are. Jason turned and saw at least 6 different phones pointed in their direction. Malcolm took one step closer. Jason instinctively stepped back. Do you know how many times I've seen this same scene play out? Malcolm asked quietly. A man like me, in a place like this, being told he's out of place? Jason sneered. You are out of place. Malcolm held his stare, then said, 12 minutes. Jason blinked. What? 12 minutes ago you made a choice, Malcolm continued. You judged. You dismissed. You humiliated. He glanced at the lobby clock. In exactly 4 minutes from now, you'll realize who I am, and by then, it'll be too late. Jason shook his head. This is delusional. Malcolm looked at Daniela. Could you please open the operations line to corporate? She nodded and began typing. Jason lurched forward. No, she can't. She doesn't have access. But the screen blinked to life. Access. Granted. Morales, Daniela. Temporary elevation. Authorized by Core Exec Channel. Jason stared in disbelief. No, 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 this can't. Malcolm turned to him, voice flat. I tried to give you the dignity of your own silence. Jason said nothing, and you answered me with volume. From the speakers came Kendra Holt's voice, steady, professional, and unmistakably in control. Riverside Corps has authorized full lockdown, initiating compliance review at this location. Daniela looked up. She's on the line, sir. Malcolm nodded. Jason was shaking now. You're bluffing, he said. There's no way. But the words didn't finish, because every screen behind the desk blinked again. New message. System review initiated. All Tier 3 staff under preliminary suspension pending investigation. Rebecca gasped. Tony stepped back. Jason staggered against the desk. And Malcolm? Malcolm just stood there, hands in his pockets, gaze steady, a man no longer waiting to be seen, but making everyone else finally look. Rebecca snapped. Maybe it was panic. Maybe it was habit. Maybe it was the kind of entitlement that comes from years of getting away with too much. But whatever it was, she reached across the front desk and grabbed Malcolm's arm. Let's go, she hissed. You're embarrassing yourself and disrupting operations. Her fingers locked around his forearm, tight. In the half-second that followed, everything in the lobby changed. The sound of skin on fabric, the forced movement, the instinctive flinch, and then... Don't touch him! Lacey's voice rang out. Her phone camera was already up. So was Jordan's. A man behind them shouted, Hey, you can't do that! Another voice, Is that on camera? That's assault. Phones rose. Guests stood. Someone gasped. Someone else dropped their coffee. Rebecca's face drained of color, but she didn't let go. That was her second mistake. The first was assuming no one would care. Malcolm didn't yank away. He didn't escalate. He simply turned his head, slowly, until his eyes met Rebecca's. I suggest, he said, calm as a mountain. You remove your hand. Daniela was already in motion. She stepped out from behind the concierge podium and positioned herself between Rebecca and Malcolm like a shield. Stop, Daniela said, voice sharp, unwavering. You're making it worse. Move, Rebecca snapped. He's not authorized. He's the CEO, Daniela replied, eyes blazing. And you just put your hands on him. Rebecca froze. Jason rushed forward. Everyone calm down! But the crowd didn't calm, because now they were part of it. A woman in a red scarf stepped forward, phone still raised. I saw that. You grabbed him. We all saw it. A man in a suit joined her. She laid hands on a guest. That's not a gray area. Tony Brooks, the security guard, stepped up beside Rebecca. His hand hovered near his walkie-talkie. Sir, he said to Malcolm, I need you to step aside while we de-escalate. From what? Malcolm asked, eyes never leaving Tony. Tony hesitated. From the situation you're causing. Another mistake, because now it was clear. They weren't interested in de-escalation, they were interested in control. Malcolm didn't move. He turned slowly, deliberately, and looked around the lobby. The crowd had grown. 15, maybe 20 guests now. Phones up, eyes locked. I walked in quietly, Malcolm said, loud enough for all of them to hear. Alone, I presented ID. I offered no threat, and your response was to steal my property, slander my name, and now, put hands on me. Rebecca stammered. We didn't know. You didn't ask, Malcolm corrected. Another beat of silence. Then, twist. A new phone screen blinked live. Reddit stream, live. CEO dragged by hotel staff. Caption, this just happened. Downtown Denver. No hashtags. Just truth already. Over 700 viewers. It was spreading. Jason saw the screen and blanched. He grabbed Rebecca's shoulder. Let go. Now she released Malcolm like he'd burned her. But it was too late. The damage was done. Daniela turned to Malcolm. Sir, are you all right? He nodded once. Thank you for stepping in. A woman near the gift shop took a bold step forward and stood beside Daniela. Then a man with a suitcase rolled his bag directly between Malcolm and Tony. Another guest joined, then two more. In seconds, a loose circle had formed around Malcolm. Not aggressive, not loud, just there, a human boundary. Jason tried to step forward. One of the guests raised his hand. "Don't!" Jason flinched. He looked at Tony. "What are you waiting for?" But Tony didn't move. His eyes had found the live stream on the nearest phone. The title, the comment section, and the small detail he couldn't unsee. Riverside Core watching this thread. Corporate was watching. Jason's face tightened. "You're all being manipulated. He's playing you." "Then why do you look so nervous?" someone asked. Jason turned, caught between losing control and losing face. "You're trespassing," he said, his voice cracking. "You're disrupting business." Malcolm stepped forward. One pace, nothing more. But the circle moved with him, as if gravity had shifted, as if they no longer protected a stranger, but their guest. Malcolm looked Jason square in the eye. "You built a fortress on assumption," he said, "and forgot the door could open from the inside." Jason backed up. He looked small now, not just outnumbered, but out of his depth. He turned to Tony again. "Do something." Tony shook his head slowly. "Not without cause." Daniela spoke, voice clear. "You've lost this, Jason." Jason opened his mouth, then closed it again. A new twist appeared on screen. Kendra Holt's voice piped in through the speaker. "Executive compliance audit initiated. All managerial staff under provisional hold. Internal broadcast now live Jason's terminal blinked red. His profile, suspended, under review." Rebecca's followed, Tony's, every Tier 3 profile tied to that shift. Frozen. Malcolm looked at them all. "Don't worry," he said quietly. "This isn't over." And from the way they looked at him now, they believed him. It started with a whisper, then a sentence, then a wave. "I stayed here last fall," said the woman in the red scarf. "Same guy, Jason, told me the pool was closed for maintenance. I checked, it wasn't. Just wasn't for me, apparently." "I had my reservation lost 3 times, said a black couple near the elevators. "Funny how it stopped happening once I sent a white assistant to book instead." Rebecca flinched. Another voice joined. "I was here for a tech conference. Got asked what booth I was working for. I was the keynote speaker. Laughter, not the good kind, spread through the crowd. A bitter, knowing sound." Lacey panned her phone across the group, capturing story after story as they poured in. "It's a pattern," she said to her followers. "This isn't about one mistake. It's about how this place decides who matters." Jason barked, "That's enough!" But no one was listening anymore. "People like this always game the system," he snapped, motioning toward Malcolm. The air went cold. Every eye turned to him. Even Tony looked up. Malcolm didn't react right away. He just blinked once, then turned, slow, measured, heavy with something old and rooted. "Finish that sentence," he said quietly. "Go on," Jason swallowed. "You were saying, people like this?" Jason's mouth opened, then shut, because now he heard himself. He saw the circle of guests, the phones, the red notification light blinking live on 4 different devices, the audience, online and off, waiting. Malcolm stepped forward once. "You meant black," he said. "You meant poor. You meant doesn't dress like you, doesn't sound like you, doesn't serve people like you." Jason sputtered. "No, But it's what you meant," Malcolm said, his voice soft. "And what you always meant." No one interrupted. No one looked away. Malcolm continued. "You think dignity is granted by dress code. That worth is measured in watch brands. That authority only comes in a tailored suit," Jason tried to recover. "You don't understand hotel policy." "Oh, I understand policy," Malcolm cut in. "I understand how it's used, when it's cited, and, most importantly, who it's enforced on." The room was silent. The livestream comments were exploding. "Holy shit, this is gold." "Malcolm for president." Why does this feel like a movie? They really said people like this? That white guy just ended his career live. Malcolm turned toward the crowd. This isn't about me, he said. It's about how easy it is to silence someone when the uniform says janitor or nanny or delivery instead of executive. He turned back to Jason. You didn't see a man. You saw a function, Jason stammered. You're twisting this. Am I? Malcolm asked. He pulled out his phone, tapped once. A second later, the hotel's overhead speakers clicked, soft but audible. Guest complaint record, July 3rd, 2023. Incident logged by concierge desk. A woman's voice played, tired, frustrated. Tried to check in, but front desk said my company card was fake. It wasn't. Took me 2 hours and 3 calls to corporate. Another click. August 19th. Security escorted me out when I asked about a missing room upgrade. Said I was causing tension in the lobby. Another. March 10th. Black male guest denied pool access. White guest next to him allowed in. No explanation. Gasps around the lobby. Malcolm looked up. These were your guests. These were your policies. These were your voices. Jason was pale now. Tony took a quiet step back. Daniela, standing still, whispered, He's been documenting this for months. Malcolm gave the faintest nod. I didn't come here to make a scene, he said, but you made the scene for me. A guest clapped once, then another. Within seconds, the lobby filled with applause, not loud or staged, but raw, real, the kind that bubbles up when truth hits oxygen. Jason tried to walk away, but Tony stepped in front of him. You're not dismissed, the guard said. Corporate's reviewing live. Jason turned. You're siding with him? Tony replied, I'm siding with everyone you just ignored. Behind the desk, Rebecca was crying. Lacey's phone focused on her, then tilted away. Nah, she said to her stream. We're not punching down. Focus on the bigger picture. Malcolm exhaled slowly. Tired, not triumphant. He turned toward the main desk, looked down at the monitor. The screen flashed, command ready, awaiting exec input. He didn't press it yet. Instead, he looked at Daniela. You okay? She nodded. I should have spoken up sooner, she whispered. You did when it mattered. Another twist hit the live stream. Jordan's phone buzzed. Yo, BuzzFeed just reposted this stream. It's trending under #RiversideJustice. Malcolm gave a small shake of the head, more weary than proud. Viral isn't victory, he said. It's just volume. He turned back to Jason. You were given power, and you used it to gatekeep comfort, to ration respect. Jason didn't speak. Malcolm stepped forward. I was once told I wasn't clean enough to walk these halls. Jason flinched. He remembered now. Malcolm leaned in, voice low, just between them. I used to mop this lobby. 15 years ago, Jason blinked. I was the night janitor. You had me fired because I used the front elevator. Jason's knees buckled slightly. Malcolm straightened. No cameras back then, he said. No audience. Just silence. He glanced around. But not today. Malcolm stepped forward, just a pace. The crowd around him had grown dense, protective, but respectful. No one reached for him. No one interrupted. He scanned the room, taking in the marble floors, the chandelier glinting above, the golden-framed portrait of the hotel's founder behind the front desk. Then he turned back to Jason. You said I didn't belong here, Malcolm said softly. Jason stood frozen, sweat clinging to his collar. Malcolm tilted his head. I'll correct you now. He looked out toward the guests, the staff, the cameras, the phones, all of it. This lobby is mine. Gasps, audible. Tony's brow furrowed. Lacey's jaw dropped. Daniela, standing near the terminal, blinked. Malcolm glanced at her. You've got system access, yes? She hesitated. Yes, sir. Then check it, Malcolm said calmly. Use the executive override channel. Jason barked. She doesn't need to do anything. She works for the hotel, Malcolm interrupted. Not for you. Daniela nodded and turned to the monitor. Her fingers flew over the keyboard. A secure access prompt blinked. She typed in a 4-digit code, her staff credentials. Then a new screen slid into place. Access level, Tier 4. Executive stream, pending. 2 seconds later, it unlocked. Her eyes widened. On the screen, Malcolm J. Rivers. Title, Chief Executive Officer, Riverside Holdings Access Level. Root Protocol. Override. Active authorization. Unrestricted. She blinked, read it again, then slowly, carefully looked up. Lacey leaned in, whispering behind her phone. Wait, he's the CEO? Daniela didn't whisper back. She stood up straight, turned to the crowd, and said it out loud. He is. Gasps spread like ripples. Cameras zoomed in on Malcolm's face. Jordan said, Yo, this is a movie. Jason's mouth opened, then closed again. Words refused to come out. I don't understand. This has to be some kind of... You don't have to understand, Malcolm cut in. You just have to listen. He turned back to Daniela. Call Carla Holt, he said. Use the direct line. Tell her it's time. Daniela nodded and moved with urgency. Jason spun to Rebecca. You knew anything about this? Rebecca looked pale. No, I thought he was just... Just what? Malcolm asked, voice calm. Say it. She didn't. Tony took a half step toward the desk. Is this real? He asked. Malcolm turned. You've got a comms device. Tony nodded. Check your internal ops feed. Tony tapped his earpiece, adjusted the dial, listened. Then his entire posture changed. Yes, sir, he said. Jason stared. What are you doing? Tony didn't answer him, because he wasn't his superior anymore. Kendra's voice chimed through the comms line. Security, hold all Tier 3 operations. Senior legal en route. Lock down executive floor access for corporate inspection. A guest whispered, What just happened? Another guest answered, Power shifted. Malcolm stepped away from the center of the crowd and walked, quietly, slowly, to the check-in counter. He looked at Rebecca. I'm here to check into the founder's suite. Her lips trembled. She glanced at Jason. He was no help now. Malcolm continued. It's under M.J. Rivers. You'll find it under Executive Reservation Channel. Booked 6 months in advance. Prepaid. Rebecca looked at the screen. Sure enough, there it was. May I see ID again? She asked, voice nearly a whisper. Malcolm slid the black metal card forward. She took it with trembling fingers. The name, Malcolm J. Rivers, the same one she'd confiscated 30 minutes ago. She scanned it. The terminal didn't just approve it. It lit up green across the board. Premier identity match. Welcome, Executive Rivers. Rebecca swallowed hard. We'll send someone to help with your bags. Malcolm looked down at his modest backpack. He chuckled softly. I travel light. Then, though I'd appreciate some clean sheets. And quiet, Jason exploded. This is insane. You set us up. You baited us. Malcolm turned. Set you up for what? You knew we'd react like this. No, Malcolm said. I didn't know. I hoped you wouldn't. He stepped closer. I wanted to believe maybe, just maybe, this time would be different. Jason shouted, You played us! Malcolm's voice dropped an octave. You exposed yourselves. The entire lobby was quiet again, all eyes on the man they thought was a janitor. Malcolm's phone buzzed once. He glanced at it, then looked at Daniela. She answer? Daniela nodded. Carla Holt is on video hold. Patch it through, Malcolm said. Daniela tapped a key. The front desk screen switched to a live feed. A composed woman in a black blazer and white blouse appeared on screen. Her expression unreadable. Her voice calm and direct. Mr. Takei, Rivers, are you invoking Article 9? I am. Jason blinked. What's Article 9? Carla continued, unfazed. Then I will initiate emergency corporate protocol. temporary suspension of all managerial staff on site, pending formal investigation, Jason yelled. You can't do that! Carla didn't even glance at him. Mister, Rivers can. And Jason stepped forward, frantic. I've given 10 years to this hotel. Malcolm looked at him, measured. I gave 15, he said, and you had me fired because I took the wrong elevator. Jason froze. Carla spoke again. Security will escort all Tier 3 and Tier 2 managers off-site until internal review completes. You may collect personal items and exit within 15 minutes, Tony nodded. Understood. Rebecca whispered, Wait, me too? Carla nodded once. Everyone, no exceptions. Daniela looked at Malcolm. You planned all this? He shook his head. No, he said, but I prepared for it. Lacey's voice was quiet but filled with awe. This is real justice. Like, live. Malcolm looked at the crowd, at the phones, the faces, the voices, and then he said the one thing that truly shifted everything. This hotel doesn't need new wallpaper. It needs new values. A sharp beep echoed from the terminal. Carla's voice came crisply through the monitor. Confirming termination of Jason Carr, Rebecca Nguyen, and Anthony Brooks. Credentials are now locked. System access revoked, Jason laughed bitterly, arms wide. Revoked? What does that even mean? The light above the employee entrance blinked red. He reached into his pocket, yanked out his security card, and swiped it. Denied. A shrill buzz followed. Red light, no click. Rebecca stepped forward, trying hers. Denied. She froze, her card still in hand. Tony didn't even bother trying. He already knew. Behind the desk, Daniela watched the monitor update in real time. Staff access log, Jason Carr, terminated. Staff access log, Rebecca Nguyen, terminated. Staff access log, Anthony Brooks, terminated. Carla's voice was steady. Your final pay and legal documentation will be delivered within 72 hours. You are instructed to vacate the premises immediately, Jason snapped. This isn't how we do things. Malcolm turned to him, calm but firm. No, he said. This is how we fix them. Silence followed, not because there was nothing to say, but because nothing could top that. Jason looked around. He was still in the same lobby, same chandeliers, same walls. But everything had changed. He wasn't the one in control anymore. He wasn't the one everyone turned to. Now, they turned away. Lacey whispered to Jordan, He's not even loud. That's the scary part. He doesn't have to be. Jason stormed toward the guest elevator. Tony stepped into his path. You can't go that way. Jason's nostrils flared. Don't you dare! You've been terminated. Jason, Tony said, his voice low. This elevator's for guests and execs. You're neither, Jason shoved past, but the elevator didn't open, locked. Another guest murmured, Guess he's learning what access denied feels like. Jason turned, rage in his face. This isn't fair. I built this place. Malcolm finally raised his voice, just slightly. No, he said. You patrolled it, you controlled it, but you didn't build it. He stepped closer. The people who cleaned the rooms, greeted the guests, fixed the pipes at 3 a.m., they built it. Jason scoffed. Malcolm didn't flinch. You just decided who got to feel like they belonged. A ripple of agreement moved through the crowd. Rebecca stepped back, clutching her card like a lifeline. I didn't mean. You meant everything you said, Malcolm replied, eyes steady. You assumed, you judged, and when challenged, you escalated. She looked down. Malcolm continued, quieter now. I don't hate you, but I can't trust you. Not here, not with this brand, not with my staff. He turned to Tony. And you? Tony met his gaze. I followed protocol. But I didn't ask enough questions. Malcolm nodded once. That's the problem with protocol, he said. It lets silence pretend it's neutral. Tony exhaled deeply. I get it. he said. Do you? Malcolm asked. Tony nodded. Yeah, I do. He pulled his own security badge from his vest, set it on the counter. I'll walk out the front, he said. Malcolm watched him go. No guards needed, no fight, just a man who finally saw the mirror. Jason wasn't so graceful. He kept pacing, muttering, swiping his card at every locked door, front, side, back, hoping something would open. Nothing did. He tried yelling at a junior staffer. The staffer didn't even flinch. Don't bother, Daniela said. He can't hear you. Jason turned. What did you say? I said he can't hear you, she repeated. Because you're not his boss anymore. Because you never were. The crowd parted for him, not out of respect, but distance. He was radioactive now. Malcolm watched the whole thing, not with glee, with gravity. He wasn't savoring the takedown, he was owning it. Lacey whispered into her mic. Y'all, this is bigger than a firing. This is what a cultural shift looks like. Carla spoke one last time through the monitor. Mr. The Rivers, Riverside Holdings compliance team will arrive within the hour. Do you need assistance preparing the location? Malcolm didn't hesitate. No, he said. We've already started. He glanced toward Daniela. Lock down internal access to floor 4 and 5. Route all calls to legal. She nodded. Malcolm turned back to the crowd. To the guests who witnessed all this, I thank you for your patience and your courage. He looked at Lacey and Jordan. For your voices, then at the other guests. For remembering what decency looks like. Someone clapped, then another, then the whole lobby, not just for the power play, for the principle. Jason stood off to the side, small now, smaller than anyone had ever seen him. He didn't scream again, didn't argue, didn't beg. He just left, badge in hand, jacket wrinkled, career over. Rebecca followed, tears in her eyes. Tony paused at the door, looked back once, then kept walking. And Malcolm? He didn't smile, he just breathed in, like the air finally belonged to everyone again. As the automatic doors closed behind Jason, silence filled the lobby again. The kind of silence that wasn't empty, but earned. Malcolm remained still, his gaze not on the chaos that just left, but on a small brass plaque near the elevator, one that read, EST 1984, the Riverside Hotel. Daniela followed his eyes. You've been here a long time, haven't you? Malcolm exhaled, slow. 21 years ago, he said. I mopped this lobby before sunrise. He turned, slowly pacing past the front desk. No suit, no security clearance, no luxury card, just a grey shirt that said, Facilities, and a boss who never looked me in the eye. Guests quieted, even the clicking phones stopped. I worked night shifts, Malcolm continued, kitchen floors, pipe leaks, cleaning broken wine glasses, off ballroom tile after weddings I'd never be invited to. He stopped at the service hallway, door slightly ajar. I was once told not to use the main hallway, that certain guests might complain if they saw me. Someone whispered, Jesus. Malcolm's voice remained steady, not bitter, measured. One night, there was a leak in the prep kitchen. I went in, tools in one hand, mop in the other. I was fixing a clogged line under the sink. His hand mimicked the motion, muscle memory still sharp. And Jason Carr, then just a supervisor, stormed in, furious I was on the wrong side of the staff boundary. He paused. He told me, stick to the mop, boy. Gasps again. The word boy hit hard, especially from the mouth of a man who'd just been escorted out. I didn't respond, Malcolm said. Didn't have the words back then. But I remember how it felt. He looked up. That same Jason Carr just screamed at the executive of this hotel, tried to have him arrested, and told everyone watching that I didn't belong. Lacey whispered, Oh my God. Full circle, Malcolm nodded. But here's the part I need you to understand, he said. I didn't become CEO because I wanted revenge. He let the words settle. I became CEO because no one else wanted to rebuild the foundation. Daniela's eyes glistened. I've built every floor Jason tried to keep me off, Malcolm said, his voice unwavering. Pause. I've signed every payroll check he ignored, approved every repair request he once rejected. I've sat across tables he never believed I'd be invited to. He turned fully to the staff now, those still standing, front desk, housekeeping, maintenance peeking from the hallway. And every time I walk back in this building, I remember every name that called me invisible. Beat. But I also remember the ones who didn't. He looked at Daniela. You checked. You stood up. That matters. Daniela swallowed hard. Thank you, sir. He turned toward the guests. I know this lobby will be on 1 million screens by tonight, and I know what the headlines will say. He raised an eyebrow. Black CEO shuts down racist hotel staff in viral takedown. A few chuckles, nods, but I don't want to go viral. Now the tone shifted, quieter, deeper. I want the janitor watching this in St. Louis, working 2 jobs, wondering if anyone will ever see him. I want him to know that I see him. He tapped his own chest. That this suit, this title, this moment, was never about proving them wrong. It was about proving we were always right to believe we belonged. Applause erupted again, but softer, more reverent. Malcolm walked toward the concierge desk, leaned in. To anyone on this staff wondering what happens next, you're not being judged for silence. You're being measured by what you choose. After he smiled. I suggest you choose loud. Behind him, Carla's voice chimed back into the comms line. Legal team is 5 minutes out. Conference room has been secured. Malcolm nodded. We'll begin the audit now. He turned once more, giving the guests a nod. This hotel will keep running. But from now on, clean floors won't be the only thing we inspect. And with that, he walked toward the hallway, where he once mopped grease stains, and disappeared behind the executive door. Only this time, it opened before he touched it, and stayed open for those ready to follow. A full hour had passed since the first confrontation. Now, a conference room, once reserved for quiet board meetings, buzzed with transformation. Malcolm stood at the head of the long oak table. Carla projected legal memos on a screen. Lacey and Jordan sat near the back, phones lit, still live streaming. A hashtag blazed across every trending chart. Hashtag Janitor to CEO. Jordan turned the screen. Dude, this thing's hitting Singapore already. You're on their front page, Lacey added. You're being quoted in Portuguese. They translated the fix-it line. Malcolm stayed focused. Carla, he said, not looking up. Status on the satellite branches? She tapped a few keys. 57 locations under Riverside Holdings have been sent immediate compliance notices. Each GM has 72 hours to begin internal audit procedures. Every location? Malcolm asked. Carla nodded. Every single one. We pulled all their incident reports, guest complaints, internal flags. The patterns? Consistent. Malcolm looked around the table. Front desk staff, housekeepers, a few engineers. Some had never been invited to this room before. Now they sat shoulder to shoulder with corporate. I want this very clear, Malcolm said. We're not just reacting. We're resetting murmurs of agreement. Daniela raised her hand slightly. Sir, may I ask something? Malcolm nodded. What happens to the guests who were ignored when they filed complaints? Especially about staff conduct, Carla answered without hesitation. We're reopening those files. All of them. Malcolm stepped forward. Every ignored report, every dismissed voice, from the last 5 years gasps. Even Carla looked up. You're authorizing a full retroactive investigation? She asked. I'm demanding it, Malcolm replied. We will not be the chain that pretends it was just a bad day. If someone said, I was mistreated, we listen and we act. Someone clapped, then others followed. It wasn't loud, it was affirming. Malcolm raised a hand gently. There's more. He turned toward Daniela. You stood up when no one else did. You asked the right question, even when it risked your job. Daniela's face went pale. You're being promoted, Malcolm said. Effective immediately. Lead Guest Experience Officer, Riverside Hotel. Daniela's eyes widened. Sir, I'm only 6 months in. Exactly, Malcolm said. It didn't take you 20 years to see what was wrong. So it won't take you 20 years to help make it right, Lacey whispered into her phone mic. She's crying, y'all. I'm crying. We're all crying. Daniela stood. She didn't know what to do with her hands. Thank you, she whispered. I won't let you down. You already haven't, Malcolm said. Carla glanced at her screen. Local news has picked up the stream. 3 major outlets are requesting interviews. Malcolm shook his head. Let the video speak for itself. He walked to the whiteboard, grabbed a marker, and wrote in large block letters. Dignity is a policy. Then underlined it, twice. I don't want another diversity seminar. I don't want another poster in the break room, he said. I want new onboarding. New standards, new consequences. He turned back to the team. I want guest reviews to include staff treatment metrics. Jordan blinked. Wait, like how staff treat guests? No, Malcolm said. How guests treat staff? Everyone sat back. We've normalized too many behaviors because someone paid for a suite, he continued. That ends today. Carla raised her eyebrows. You'll take pushback. I'll take it, Malcolm said. But no more whispering about who gets spit on, yelled at, disrespected at 2 a.m. while turning down sheets. He turned to the staff. I see you. And I will back you. Tony, watching quietly from the hallway, took a deep breath. He wasn't in the room, but he heard every word. Outside, protesters had begun to gather, not to riot, but to rally. A handmade sign read, Justice with Housekeeping. Inside, Malcolm wrote a second phrase under the first. No more invisible labor. He handed the marker to Daniela. You'll lead the team that trains the next 100 hires, he said. She hesitated. Me? Yes, Malcolm said. Because if we wait for the old guard to get it, we'll still be waiting 10 years from now. Someone at the back of the room, an older janitor in his 50s, stood up. I remember you, he said. You used to mop the service entrance on 3rd Street. Always said hi. No one else did. Malcolm smiled. You said something to me once, the man continued. You said, we'll rise quiet, but they'll notice when we don't fall back down. Malcolm's voice was lower now. I remember. The man nodded. They're noticing now. Outside the lobby, press vans began to line the street, microphones, boom poles, live shots. But inside the Riverside Hotel, something deeper than headlines was happening. An audit of not just policy, but principles. Malcolm turned to Carla one last time. Create a task force, not just for hotels we own, but partners we do business with. Any company that wants our brand on their building needs to sign the new standard. Carla raised an eyebrow. You're expanding this system-wide? No, Malcolm said. We're making it industry-wide. Beat. And if they don't want to comply, take our name off the door. The room fell silent again, then erupted, because this wasn't about one man in a suit. It was about every person who'd ever been told, stick to the mop, boy, and who now had the chance to say, this mop built more than floors. It built futures. By early evening, Malcolm's team had commandeered a former events room, now turned into a rapid response center. Screens blinked with messages, calls, archived reports. But what truly buzzed was the flood of voices. Sir, Carla called, motioning Malcolm over. You need to hear this. She pressed play on a voicemail. Hi, this is Raina Caldwell, former front desk at Riverside, Chicago. I saw what happened. And I need to say, Jason wasn't the only one. We were taught to do it. We even had a code name for it. Priority shielding. It meant steering certain guests away from the main floor, especially walk-ins who didn't look target demo. I quit after 2 months. I couldn't sleep. The screen pinged again. Another message, then another, then 20. Carla scanned the dashboard. Austin, Miami, Cincinnati, 3 from Phoenix. All former employees. Same terminology. Same stories. Malcolm leaned forward. Pull the full transcripts, he said. Run a text match on policy keywords. See if this was standardized. Daniela appeared at the door. Sir, I've got something too. She held a printed email, trembling, slightly. This was forwarded anonymously through the internal tip line. I triple-checked the metadata. It's from 2021. Malcolm took it. Read it once, then again, slower. Jason Carr is simply executing on the framework provided to regional teams. Customer optics matter, and we must uphold brand consistency. When in doubt, defer the guest. Push back softly. Document nothing. Below the signature line, -M, Turner, Regional Director, -Southeast Division. Malcolm's jaw tightened. Carla whispered, Turner. As in Marcus Turner? Malcolm nodded, once. He retired 2 years ago, Carla added. After several complaints, HR buried them. Malcolm placed the paper down. He wasn't rogue. He was following a playbook. He walked toward the map on the wall. Dots lit up where riverside hotels stood across the country. I want a full background check on Turner's chain of command. Everyone he promoted, everyone he protected. Daniela, eyes wide, asked, Are we going after him? No, Malcolm said. We're going after everything he built. He clicked into the system logs. There's a rot in this company. And it wasn't just bad managers. It was a culture of plausible deniability. He read aloud another tip. I was told to downgrade bookings if the guests seemed like they'd complain later. That always meant minorities. If I pushed back, they reminded me, there's a waiting list for your job. Daniela looked shaken. Sir, it's everywhere. And it was meant to be, Malcolm said. That's the only way something this consistent survives so long. Another voice came through the call board. This is Tomas from Miami. I watched your video. I quit in 2019 after they told me to tell a deaf guest that we didn't have ADA rooms available when we had 4 open. They didn't want extra needs on the top floor. Another ping. I was fired from Cincinnati for giving a refund to a black mother who was harassed in the pool area. They said I broke protocol. Lacey leaned closer to her livestream audience. Y'all, this is deep. This wasn't just one racist dude at the front desk. They were running a whole manual. Jordan scrolled on his tablet. Reddit's blowing up. Former guests are chiming in too. There's a thread. I thought it was just me. It has 48,000 upvotes. Malcolm looked out the window. Sunset cast a sharp orange against the skyline. One of those moments when light cuts through glass and everything is exposed. Carla, he said, archive every tip, but also tag every single one that involved legal threats. I want to know who was silenced. Carla's fingers flew across the keyboard. Malcolm exhaled. This wasn't just bias, he said. It was operationalized exclusion. Daniela asked quietly, How did Turner get away with it for so long? Malcolm turned. Because people like me weren't in the RDA room. Silence. He continued. Because when the janitor got too close to the truth, they moved the door. And when someone raised a flag, they called it a complaint instead of a warning. His voice dropped. No more complaints ignored, not on my watch. At that moment, Carla looked up. Turner's name just popped on a subpoena list from last year. Sexual harassment case. Settled privately. NDA signed. Daniela's face hardened. So he didn't just train people to discriminate, she said. He trained them to cover it up. Malcolm nodded slowly. Well, he trained the wrong generation. Because we're not covering anything anymore. He pulled out his phone, typed a message, then paused. Instead of sending it to legal, he posted it on the public company channel. To all former and current Riverside employees, if you've been silenced, pushed out, retaliated against, or ignored, we're listening now. Send your truth. We'll protect your name, but we won't protect theirs. Within seconds, replies began flowing in. One said, "Finally." Another, "Been waiting 10 years for this moment." And then a flood. "I'm ready. He ruined my life. She told me I'd never make it to the front desk. I became a GM elsewhere." Malcolm looked up. The dam had broken, and all it took was someone refusing to mop around the cracks. The ballroom was packed, lights dimmed, cameras rolling, reporters in the back, employees and executives from over 57 branches seated in quiet attention. The tension that once clung to the Riverside Hotel lobby had transformed into electricity. Every seat leaned forward, every breath held. A single podium stood at the front. Behind it, a giant banner that read, "Rivers Forward, a new chapter begins." Malcolm Rivers stepped onto the stage. No suit, no tie, just a pressed black shirt, sleeves rolled, the faint outline of janitor boots beneath the podium. He didn't need polish to speak truth. He needed people to remember where truth begins. "Good evening," he began. "Some of you know me. Most of you think you know me. A few weeks ago, I walked into one of my own properties and was told I didn't belong." He paused. "Let me be clear. That was not the first time I heard that line, but I promise you it will be the last time anyone here hears it and walks away in silence." Scattered applause, then silence again. People waited. He continued. "I started in this industry not behind a desk, not in a suit, but with a mop in my hand, cleaning cigarette ash off lobby tiles that no one else saw fit to shine. For years, people passed me, they looked through me, spoke over me, assumed I didn't understand." He looked around the room. And maybe that was true, back then. But I learned, every night, every shift, every moment I wasn't seen, I was observing. I was building, not just skills, but a blueprint. He reached into his pocket and unfolded a small, worn notebook. This was the first business plan I ever wrote. Between shifts, on paper towels, while wiping down fixtures, whispers rippled through the room. "I never wanted revenge," Malcolm said softly. "I wanted reform. I didn't want them fired. I wanted them to learn, but they refused. And when people refuse to learn, the system must be replaced." The screen behind him shifted to a bold new logo. "Rivers Forward, Equity, Accountability." Humanity applause thundered. "We're launching a full-scale review of every policy, every practice, and every hire made over the last decade," he declared. "Anonymous reporting lines, protections for whistleblowers, cultural competency training not just for show, but embedded in promotion pathways." He paused, looked to the front row. "Daniela Morales," he called out. Gasps. She froze. "You stood between me and the door that day. Not knowing who I was, not caring. You acted on conscience, not clout. That's what leadership looks like." He nodded to Carla. She handed Daniela a sealed folder. "In that folder is your promotion, effective immediately. You are the new general manager of Riverside Heights, our Denver flagship." The room erupted. Daniela covered her mouth in shock. Journalists scrambled to capture the moment. Malcolm held up a hand. "But one appointment is not the point. The point is this. Hospitality doesn't begin with the suit you wear." He let the words sink in. "It begins with how you see others." Silence, then thunderous, emotional applause. Camera flashes went off like starlight. Later that evening, as most guests filed out, a few staff lingered to shake Malcolm's hand, to thank him, to share quiet memories. But he slipped away, back down to the lobby, back to where it began. Carla found him moments later, brows furrowed in confusion. He was crouched behind the front desk, changing shoes, brown rubber soles, heavy black laces. She blinked. "Is that—" He stood, now dressed in a janitor's uniform, orange safety vest, gloves in one hand, old ID badge in the other, restored from his first year at the company. He smiled. "Time for my shift." Carla choked a laugh. "Malcolm, what are you doing?" He adjusted his collar. "Reminding people." She softened. "Of what?" "That floors get dirty," he said. "That people forget where they came from. That no matter how high we rise, the ground still holds our weight. And if we ever stop respecting the ground, we fall." Carla stepped back. He walked into the lobby. A young staff member, no more than 19, watched, stunned, as the CEO began wiping down glass, collecting a tray left behind by guests. Someone whispered, "Is that really him?" Daniela stood at the mezzanine, still holding the folder in her hand, and nodded through tears. Lacey streamed from her phone again, captioning it. "CEO returns to clean the lobby where he was humiliated, this time as a reminder of respect." Malcolm paused near the same counter where Jason once sneered. He took a small spray bottle, wiped the marble, then looked at his reflection in the glass, no longer invisible, not just seen, recognized. He smiled at the staff passing by. "Don't worry," he said. "This job's not beneath me." He tapped his chest. "It's within me."